Sunday, July 8, 2018. This is Mercedes Diesel Guy, and this is my new, hopefully short-term project, 1998 Volvo V70 GLT. Now, this is something I found online. It's actually my first time using Facebook Marketplace instead of Craigslist, and yeah, found this and I was looking for a quick fix and flip project, and this one came along, and I came out to see it last week, and it really wasn't what I'd hoped for, but I ended up getting it cheap enough. I mean, originally they were asking $650, and I paid nowhere near that. As you can see, the back is loaded up with bins full of spare parts. It will start and run. I only heard it run for literally 1 second. There's no battery in it right now, but more importantly, there's no radiator. So I just wanted to verify that the car would start. It did, but as soon as it did, the oil cooler lines started puking out oil. So it was literally start it, shut it right off. So first order of business will be to get a radiator in here. I'll have the tow truck here in a moment, so once I do, I'm going to load this up and get it home. Now, aside from those bins of parts, this car actually has a lot of positives. The body is actually pretty clean, and it's got the sunroof, which I like. Before it was parked, it had brand new tires, and it's been parked for a couple of years now, but the tires still look good to me. You know, hopefully sitting really hasn't hurt them all that much, but the seller told me that they did move the car around the driveway enough to keep the tires from sitting too long. So let's see what else. The interior is really not too bad, all things considered. I'm used to seeing these leather interiors really all torn up. It is dirty. It will need a cleanup, but this is the only real wear spot on the driver's seat here, and I can stitch that up. Everything else really not too bad. Carpets are filthy. This door panel needs attention here. I was in the junkyard yesterday, but I could not find one of these. So I may end up pulling the door panel apart and finding some beige vinyl to go over that. Forgot there's no battery, so the door locks won't work. Anyhow, like I said, bins and boxes full of spare parts. The old radiator is in there the other side. I'm actually, as soon as I get the car home, I'm going to see if maybe I can just patch up the radiator enough to throw it back in, just so I can move the car around my own driveway. Obviously, I won't be driving on a bad radiator. But all in all, like I said, I paid very little for the car. And, you know, given that I couldn't test drive it and I couldn't really verify anything, I'm hopefully happy with what I paid. I mean, I'm paying almost as much as I did for the car to have it towed back to my house, which is about 50 miles. So obviously when I do a project like this, I have to factor that sort of thing in. So I will pick up the video when I have the car home. Okay, well, here it is. I got it home about 2 hours ago and had lunch, and now I'm out here again. The tow driver actually had a little bit of a problem getting it on the truck. As the car was sitting, the parking brake had frozen up a bit. Thankfully, the guy was able to use his winch to free that up, so the car rolls now. And I also noted that the hood cable seems to be stuck, and I can't seem to latch the hood. So we actually had to ratchet strap that down. It took about an hour to get the car back here, and I had lunch, and now I've actually just unloaded the car. This sizable pile of stuff here all came with the car. Now, some of it is stuff that the previous owner took off the car to get to the radiator. What happened was it was actually a pretty handy woman who owned the car, and I think maybe her ex-husband used to do most of the work on the car for her. and she knew she had broken the radiator, so she took it apart and took a radiator that she thought would fit out of the parts stash they had at home, but unfortunately it didn't fit. The radiator she had, she told me, only had the openings for the transmission fluid cooler and not for the engine oil cooler, so that didn't work and the car sat. So I'm tasked with finding a radiator and I believe also an intercooler. Now this piece right here that I'm pointing straight at, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that. I'll have to look for a part number and look that up, see what that is. One disadvantage I have here is that things are partially disassembled, and I will show you that. And since I don't own a turbo and haven't owned a turbo, I actually don't know exactly how things are supposed to go back together. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but overall it's not too different from the V70 and the S70 I normally work on. But as you can see, there's the radiator fan that's going to go back in the car. I believe this box right here is stuff that one of these boxes is actually stuff that was taken off specifically for the repairs, and I'll figure out which box that is later. And then there's two whole storage totes there full of stuff. One of them has 2 or 3 factory radios in there, and some other good stuff here. I mean, there's an intake manifold, an air box with MAF. This is the headlight that's actually supposed to go on this car. Some spare side markers. All in all, actually a pretty good parts haul. You can see right here some license plate brackets. I actually got these at the junkyard yesterday in anticipation of bringing this car home because the brackets are a little mangled. And one other thing I got here was this air dam, which I was pretty sure this car would need, and I was right. This car needs an air dam. Let's see, other positives. This, like I said, it was parked with brand new tires, and they're in great shape, and hopefully they, once I clean them up and get a better look at them, hopefully the sitting a while hasn't really hurt them. And now let me show you the inside of the car. All in all, it's really not too bad. It is very, very dirty, but the leather interior, like I said, with the exception of that one rip on the driver's seat, which isn't too bad, it should clean up really nicely. Carpets are pretty disgusting up front, but I can clean those. Back seat here, filthy, needs a cleaning. Carpeting back here is not too bad. I mean, all the leather needs a cleaning. One thing I'm not sure if I showed you already, but the door panel on that side, the vinyl is all torn up, so I may have already mentioned that. And I did not find a replacement piece at the junkyard yesterday, so I'll have to see what I can do about that. Like I said, sunroof car, and I'm a big fan of sunroofs. And then, as you can see, this car has the third row rear seat, but it is a transplant. This is not original to the car. So, and this seat belt over on this side is not hooked up properly, so gonna be a little bit to sort this out. You can see that the carpeting color here does not match perfectly, and from what the seller told me, this bracket right here is supposed to latch into the rear seat back, but you need a rear seat back that is specific to a third row seat car, and I don't have that. They were using that blue bungee cord there to hold it all together, and if I end up holding onto the car, I'll see about getting that piece. Give me a moment and I'll show you under the hood. Now, as I may have mentioned already, the hood does not latch properly, and I think it's actually because the cable is not retracting properly inside the cable housing. Let's see if I can spray something in there and free it up. I actually just installed one of my spare batteries here. I don't know if this battery is any good anymore. It probably isn't, but it's enough for me to work the power locks and other stuff for testing. When I got the car back here, I realized that the lock cylinder on the wagon hatch was frozen solid, and I'm trying to free that up. But the only way I could unlock the hatch was to hook up a battery and use the power locks. Thankfully, that did work. So, here you can see the engine, and this piping here is how I know it's a turbo. And yeah, it's filthy, and this car needs a bunch of work. And I think basically my approach is going to be just to get the radiator and probably intercooler. If I can, I'll see if I can find somebody locally parting one of these out, get some used pieces just to get the car running and assess everything else, because in general I don't want to throw any money at this car until I know it's worth saving, and that means running it for longer than 1 second, because until I do that I really can't test the condition of the engine. I definitely can't test the transmission. So worst case scenario, I end up parting the car out, and for what I paid, I don't think I would have trouble getting my money back. I don't want it to come to that, but worst case scenario, I can do that. I mean, I paid almost as much for the tow as I did for the whole car itself. The seller was originally asking $650. I may have mentioned that already. And when I got there and I saw that the radiator had been removed, because when I went there, I may have misread the ad, I'm not sure, but I was under the impression that the radiator was simply cracked and wouldn't hold fluid, but that everything otherwise was hooked up. So if that had been the case, if the oil cooler and transmission cooler had been hooked up, I really could have run it for, a little longer than 1 second just to hear everything. So anyhow, that's what it is. I'm gonna get to work cleaning soon. I've got a bunch of other things I need to do today, so this car is not a priority, but if I can get this cleaned up a little bit, I may just also shoot a little bit of footage of the car slightly cleaner.